It's called Forever Young. May the good Lord be with you down every road you roam. And may sunshine and happiness surround you when you're far from home. And may you grow to be proud, dignified and true, and do unto others as you'd have done to you. Be courageous and be brave, and in my heart you'll always stay. Forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young. May good fortune be with you, may your guiding light be strong.
Okay, so if everyone is here watching, whether you're on YouTube or on Zoom, Doug, we have lost.
And may you never love in vain, and in my heart you will remain. Forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young. Forever young. And when you finally fly away, I'll be hoping that I served you well. For all the wisdom of a lifetime, no one can ever tell. But whatever road you choose, I'm right behind you, win or lose. Forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young, forever young.
So welcome to the Church of Perpetual Life. My name is Neil Van. I welcome you to our tonight. Welcome everyone from around the world. We have people in Israel, Australia, London, all over the United States and other countries. So glad to have you. Our event tonight is an open microphone format. There are a number of people who have signed up, and after they have spoken, if anyone else would like to speak, provided there's time, we'd very much love to have you step up and tell us a little bit about a new technological breakthrough or something that you've discovered that can help us all be healthier and live longer life spans. Our service next month will be August 26th. Zoom starts at 6 and the event starts at 7. Actually, I'm not quite sure how we're going to do that since it's a movie night. Hopefully, we'll be able to have some participation in person at our church in South Florida, but we are not quite prepared for that, and we're still working out those details. We're watching with eagle eyes the Delta variant to determine if we can meet in person again. We're hoping certainly to have a meeting by perhaps Thanksgiving, but if there's some way we can do a simple movie night with no elaborate spread of food, simply popcorn, waters, and watch the movie. The movie is going to be The Invention of Lying, rated PG, with Ricky Gervais, movie that will be pertinent to our whole Perpetual Life theme of our event for next month. So again, August 26th, the Zoom will be at 6. The actual discussion of the movie will occur after we watch the movie. We'll figure out those details, and I'll certainly email you the details on that event. Also, stand by next month as we have a really big announcement to make, and you'll hear all about it. You'll be the first ones from Perpetual Life to hear about this great announcement, and we'll be talking about that then. If you want to watch the movie, you'll be able to watch it on all of those sources, Google TV, Amazon Prime, Vudu, Apple TV, or Redbox, rent the movie. So again, thank you for coming from all over the world and all over Florida, all over the United States, Canada. What would you do if suddenly death became optional? The front page of the USA Today says medical researchers in a laboratory in California have reversed aging in human beings. What will you do when humanity has found a cure for aging? Some people do not believe that this is possible. Well, did you know that for over 1,000 years, people had tried to break the 4-minute mile barrier, to run the mile in under 4 minutes? Experts said that it couldn't be done. Some runners even tied bulls behind them to increase their incentive to do what was generally thought to be impossible. The experts, though, said that the human body had reached its limit and that it would never be possible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. In the 1940s, the mile running record was pushed to 4 minutes and 1 second, where it stood for 9 years, and runners struggled with the idea that the experts must be right. Then, in 1954, Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile barrier when he ran the mile in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. As part of his training, he visualized the achievement in order to create a sense of certainty in his mind and in his body. After he broke this invisibly perceived barrier, an interesting thing happened. Immediately, other people began to also run the mile in under 4 minutes. The barrier that the experts of the day had created vanished. Generally, when we are told something is impossible by the experts, then we believe them, don't we? That's natural. When a person goes to a doctor and is told that they have stage 4 cancer and that there is no possible cure, that patient often will believe in the doctor's diagnosis, not get a second opinion, believe that there are no cures available. They'll go home and die without even a fight. This often happens. We tend to follow and believe the experts. And the experts learn what they know from past experts who have in turn learned from previous experts, and so on and so on. And so the status quo is maintained until someone like Roger Bannister comes along and shatters the status quo of his time. The world was once widely believed to be flat until Magellan set sail and his ship did not fall off the edge of the earth. And so that status quo was changed. Flight for humans was deemed impossible by the so-called experts of the day until the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk in 1903. And after that perceived barrier was pulled down, only 66 years later, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins flew to the moon. We humans are amazing, remarkable beings. We have fantastic abilities. We can do things, and we will do things that we have never even dreamed of as of yet. But we also can get really bogged down in the status quo of the day. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." And this emphasizes how much attitude determines your success or failure. And this is true for every goal, every project, every challenge that you take on, and is absolutely true for technological discoveries and advancements for humanity. If you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you are right. If you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you are right. When you become certain of something, when every part of your being believes in it and focuses on it every day, you focus on it every hour, then something magical happens. New Agers call it the law of attraction. Scientists call it the RAS, the reticular activating system. The RAS helps our brains decide what information to focus on and what to delete. When you have a clearly defined purpose, a clearly defined mission, and when you live every moment in a state of certainty that you will achieve the goal that you set for yourself, then you influence what your RAS filters out and what it lights up. As a result, you pay special attention to things that help you achieve what you are focusing on, things you otherwise would have never noticed. As a society, if we hold to the current status quo belief that we all will inevitably die horrible, decrepit, painful deaths, never to walk the earth again, then we will die. But if individually and as a society, we can understand that death is optional, and we get behind the medical researchers at the foundations like SENS or Century 21 Medicine, and when you join organizations like People Unlimited and Terasem and the Church of Perpetual Life, and we fund these groups, and when needed, we help these organizations. Maybe we volunteer at RadFest or do the things that seem menial but are really quite important to the everyday activities for these societies that are helping us to be healthier and to live longer lives. Then we all have a real hope for bright, fruitful, long, luxurious lives and a future where death and aging become optional. At this time, on this planet, 178,000 people die every day. 120 people die every minute. And this is horrible. This is unacceptable. This has to change. Strangely, most people in our society accept this as normal. Why? Why is this accepted when we can rage and organize against things like COVID and cancer? Why is it acceptable that 7,200 people are dying every minute? Why? I think it is because they are part of our current status quo that believes that there are no alternatives. They're not aware of what has happened over these past few years. They do not know about Dr. Robert McIntyre's amazing breakthroughs in cryopreserving brains and other organs. They're not aware of the many breakthroughs that the people of the age reversal networks are having, or that Dr. Bill Andrews and others can accurately measure your telomeres and gauge your biological age. And they don't know that Dr. Greg Fahey at Century 21 Medicine reversed the age of nearly all of the people in his study by 2.5 years over a 1-year span, giving them a net 1.5 years of turning back their biological age. Dr. Fahey has proven that age reversal is possible by reversing the biological age of these people. But sadly, most of humanity is unaware of this amazing breakthrough in the status quo of life itself. 8 years ago, when this church was founded, it was extremely rare to read about age reversal research in the mainstream media. But now it has become almost commonplace. In fact, if you pick up this month's copy of Popular Mechanics magazine, you'll find a feature story titled, "Can Science Cure Death? It Sure Looks Like It." This story is a report on age reversal with photographs and quotes from our friends Jim Stroll from People Unlimited and Dr. Natasha Vita-Moore, both of whom have spoken here at the church before. Also, there are reports on the brilliant works of Dr. David Sinclair, Dr. Alex Z at In Silico Medicine, and Dr. Nir Barzilay. Since 2013, there have been films and documentaries created here at the Church of Perpetual Life. There have been feature stories in every important media outlet around the world on the works toward age reversal. Organizations like SENS and Dr. George Church's group at Harvard have been all over the media, from serious interviews on CBS 60 Minutes to casual, fun chats like the one Aubrey had with Stephen Colbert. Death is not inevitable or acceptable, and we must challenge the erroneous idea that many people have that in the end, everyone has to die. We must challenge this false belief every day with everyone we meet, everywhere we go, in every way we can. I am an immortalist. I refuse to die. I choose health over sickness. I choose life over death. And I see a bright future for humanity, one where knowledge and wisdom is not just passed down from grandfather to grandson or mother to daughter, but where knowledge and wisdom is retained and built upon by those individuals who have chosen to defeat death. I love life. I'm never going to die. And I know that I will live well past my 120th birthday in perfect health, dancing down the road, singing and living joyously and perpetually. I believe that all of life is sacred and that we have been given this one life to make unlimited. I believe in our Creator's divine plan for all of humanity to have infinite lifespans in perfect health, peace, and pure happiness, rendering death to be optional. Unlimited lifespans will not come without work. Every day we must all work together towards achieving our personal unlimited lifespan. I believe that once we do, we will create a heaven here on earth, right now, because people who want to achieve physical immortality, a life that is free from disease, also want a world that is clean, a world free from pollution. We want a world where the creatures on this planet are safe from extinction, a world where no person has to starve to death, and people everywhere have pure, clean water. We want to return this planet to the perfect place it once was, for it to once again become a Garden of Eden. And we will add to this garden, for all that wish and work for it, the ability for us to live unlimited lifespans. It's time for us to transcend from lives that come to an end and to become truly unlimited. It is time for humanity to solve this mystery and to unravel the puzzle of universal resuscitation, and for us to reanimate and reunite with all of the precious souls who have been waiting in suspended animation. It is time for the divine word to become our divine action. I love the quote from Sir Arthur C. Clarke, who said, "The only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible." And so I wake up every day energized in spirit. It empowers me to live in a state of divine happiness. It is my honor and pleasure to serve our Creator, our church, and all of humanity forever and ever. As an immortalist, I have a question for you. What will you do now that aging is being reversed and death is becoming optional? I love playing with my children every day. I love reading and watching movies, going to plays, making new friends, having parties, visiting new places. I love to sleep and wake up in the morning refreshed and jump in the ocean. Life is wonderful. Life is awesome. I'm in love with life, and the current lifespans most people have are just way too short. Why shouldn't we live extra long and healthy lives to do all of the things that we love and enjoy? 120 years is way too short. Strangely, I have found that some people do not want to live indefinitely. Some people are in such pain or physical agony, emotional agony, that they are looking forward to their death. Some may even be thinking about suicide. Oh, obviously, these poor creatures are suffering from some type of a deep depression, or maybe they're in such extreme physical pain, such an unhealthy state, that they cannot love life or embrace life in the way that we immortalists do. And so they don't even think about longevity as we do. I feel that we will find help for these poor souls that are writhing in agony. I believe we will find cures for their diseases and depressions. But still, the idea of dying and ceasing to exist, even for these wretched souls, is such a horrible notion that they will often create a fantasy world of a life after death. Many have convinced themselves that they will go to a heaven after death, or be reincarnated, or live again in some other similar way. These ideas have been around for thousands of years, and I believe people have created these fantasies in order to take away the pain from the horrible truth that when you die, you end. You are finished. There's nothing more. For thousands of years, the status quo has been to believe in some kind of a life after death. And naturally, people would latch on to any glimmer of hope that there is some place to go after we die, where we will once again be with all of the people that we have loved and those that have died before us. For thousands of years, people have created these fantasies to block out the painful idea of their existences coming to a permanent end. But now we are evolving beyond these false fantasies. We have reached a place in which our constantly evolving discoveries in age reversal have made these archaic ideas pointless and obsolete. And it is vital that we share this good news with everyone we love and care for. These out-of-date ideas of a place to go after death or reincarnation that once gave people some form of peace of mind now have become deadly, dangerous, and destructive fantasies to have, because these fantasies get in the way of achieving actual physical immortality. They block us from real, healthy, extreme longevity. Why should a person work hard toward physical immortality if they are convinced that they will live again after dying? People who believe in any sort of fantasy of life after death need to know that death itself can be optional. But how do we talk with them about this? How can we save the people that we love that are still shackled by old ideas on life and death? I find that it's best to be slow and patient and forgiving of them. When I first discovered the good news that death can be optional, I immediately told everyone that I knew. I couldn't contain myself. I even played an age reversal video at my wedding party. The reactions I got from some of the people that I spoke with was a bit puzzling. I expected them immediately to get it, to understand, and become as excited as I was in this great and important cause. Instead, I met resistance and denial. I think some of the people may even have wondered if I was losing my mind. Maybe they thought I was going a little crazy. It was frustrating and still can be challenging. Still, all of us that are immortalists are ambassadors to the ignorant who subscribe to fantasies that soothe what they really do know deep down, but they will not acknowledge to themselves. They really know deep down that when they die, they will be gone forever. If these deathists truly believed in these fantasies, they would rejoice and celebrate when someone that they love dies. But truly, when you attend a funeral, people are not wearing bright, joyful clothes. They're not dancing and singing full of merriment. No, they're in mourning, wearing black. Everyone is sad and crying because deep down, they know that their fantasy is a lie. That they have been lying to themselves with fantasies to distract themselves from the pain. Sure, these fantasies can help take away their pain, but this can cost them their lives. If it is less painful for deathists to lie to themselves and embrace these fantasies, which have been followed for thousands of years. Since some people have been taught fantasies about a life after death for most of their lives, it may take them some time to really grasp the changes that are happening in our world today. Sadly, some people will never get it, and they will die. The difficult thing for us to do then is to be able to release them, to release the ones that we love that are so dug in and stubborn to the changes that are coming. I know how difficult this is, as I have lost many that I've loved and deeply cared for. But remember that when you release someone that you love, your hand is wide open and free to hold the hand of another person, to receive another person in your life. Sometimes we have to exchange a dying friend or family member with one that will live and support our belief in our knowledge of unlimited lifespans and perfect health. And so, as our friends and biological families that will not accept extreme lifespans die, we can create a new family to live our lives with. As those people that we love but don't accept age reversal pass away, as they go away, as they die, we can replace them with other friends and family members that we create ourselves. I prefer to fill my life with immortalists. These are people that not only support me and my beliefs in extreme longevity, but also people that I expect to have around for a long, long time. It's too painful to lose someone that I love. So although I release these stubborn friends and family members from my daily thoughts, my prayers, from my meditations, I do still check in with them from time to time because people change. And in the end, I still hope that all of the people that I love and have loved will join in the revolution against aging and death. I'm reminded of a little song that I sang when I was a boy. Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other gold. While researchers have cracked the surface of age reversal, there is still a lot of work to do. It is vital that we work every day in every way to continue to support age reversal research. We have a lot of work to do before we can rest in immortality and perfect happiness. Did you know that a cure for scurvy was discovered in 1497 by Vasco da Gama's crew, but that this cure was repeatedly lost, forgotten, rediscovered, misconstrued, confused, and generally just messed around with for hundreds of years? Despite being a leading killer of seafarers and explorers, by the 1870s, the citrus cure was discredited by British experts, and for nearly 60 years, scurvy, despite being cured with scientific research to back it up, continued killing people. And this went on until vitamin C was finally isolated in 1932 during some research on some guinea pigs. We cannot let something like this happen to the cures for aging that have been developed or for the cures that are yet to come. So how do we help to further age reversal? What can you do to help? I would ask you to look in the mirror, look at yourself. What do you have? What can you do? Appraise yourself and figure out what skills you have that can help and put them to use to end aging. I'm not a medical researcher. I am not a fundraiser for biotech. 15 years ago, when I first met Aubrey de Grey in person at a lecture that he gave at the Orlando Science Museum, I was a realtor and auctioneer, and I told him specifically what my skill sets were. And I said that I wanted to apply all my skills in any manner that would further the cause to defeat death. A few weeks after this meeting with Aubrey, I flew out to UCLA to attend a special longevity conference that he was putting on to help in any way that I could. Since I'm an auctioneer by trade, I volunteered to do a mini fundraising auction, and we raised a little money during the conference. I was also happy to chauffeur people, speakers, to and from the airport, to move around chairs and tables for different events. I helped out wherever I could. And then several years later, Aubrey de Grey introduced me to Bill Falloon, and we've created the Church of Perpetual Life here in South Florida, which continues to grow in Florida and around the world. I'm glad to have Rabbi Sharga here, and he'll be speaking later tonight about what he is doing to form the Synagogue of Perpetual Life, which is another meetup of immortalists that can follow our services and use the recorded teachings from our past services over the last 8 years for their temple. And I would encourage all of you to create a meetup in your town. Be the first in your state or province to create a place for people who don't want to die, to be able to learn about health and true longevity. You can create a safe and inspirational meeting in your country to celebrate life along with us here at Perpetual Life. Look at yourself and think, what can you do? And join us in creating a world where there is perfect health and no death. Make unlimited living the focus of everything that you do. Know that this is the greatest and most amazing time in history to be alive. Make life the thing that lights up your RAS, your reticular activating system. Don't let it pass you by. You don't have to die. Let's create our heaven right here on earth and never leave. Never die. Live forever. Stay healthy and embrace all that life offers you every day. Namaste. So we have open microphone format tonight, and our members here that will be speaking, our first member that we have is Joe Bennett, and Joe Bennett is going to speak on Niagen. And you know what, Joe? I will give your introduction. I know you're doing another talk, and I'm going to give that after. So Douglas, let's bring Joe Bennett to the microphone.
Thank you, Neil. Absolute pleasure to be here. First time speaking. I understand you'd like me to talk about Niagen first, and then a short presentation on young blood transfusion. Okay, brilliant. So I can start whenever you're ready, Neil.
Yes, you're ready, Joe. You have.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Right, I'm just going to share my screen. So presentation. Okay, so that should be that. Right. Okay, so that should now be running. Right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just introduce myself quickly. My name's Joe Bennett. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Nottingham in the UK. I studied regenerative medicine for my master's, and I'm also a physicist. I specialize in groundbreaking medical technology that is going to be used for, as the name suggests, regenerative medicine. One of the main focuses on my work currently is to try and create mechanisms through which senescent cells can be destroyed, but this can be expanded into a load of different possible approaches to regenerative medicine. We're talking about gene therapy, enzyme therapy, RNA therapy. The truth is that right now there is a huge explosion in the scientific progress we made against aging. And as you said previously, 10 years, or not even 10 years ago, the idea was seen as, I wouldn't say silly, but we just had no idea about really where to even start. It was a complete mystery as to what was going on. We had vague ideas. We knew that, for example, we knew that DNA mutated. We know that we got built up of proteins that we didn't want. We know that enzymes started dysfunction, but we truly didn't really understand where we needed to start. And I think this is where, as you're saying previously, that a lot of scientists previously have said that such thing is impossible, but not in a physical sense, not like, say, breaking a physical law, like going faster than the speed of light or something like that, but just the complexity of it was baffling, truthfully. So it's like climbing Mount Everest. It seems an impossible task, but as you said, we're starting to get there. We're starting to say that actually maybe this isn't so impossible. So today I'm going to talk about two very, very simple ideas in aging that we've come across, because we previously had this idea, this kind of like almost miasma with aging, when everything was just so confusing. The analogy that I've used in German previously is, imagine if you're trying to work out how a building collapsed and you have no idea what caused it. So you look through and say, okay, well, maybe it was poorly constructed. Maybe the materials weren't properly created. Maybe it was a natural disaster. Maybe it was sabotage. Maybe it was, it could be so many different things. And there are people in our society that their job is to work out what happened to said building. In a biological sense, it was exactly the same thing for us, in that we saw the end results of aging, but we couldn't really work out exactly where this really came to, where it started. And for a long time, it was believed that there was hundreds and thousands of things that were going wrong. And this is where the quote unquote impossibility of reversing aging came from, because it seemed like an impossible task. However, now that we've started looking more closely at the process of aging, we're starting to come to the conclusion that it might actually really not be that complicated at all in the grand scheme of things. Oh, it looks terrible. Oh, it looks the results to our body is, as you said, it's horrendous. nearly everything, well, pretty much everything is degraded and broken and damaged, and it's a whole process. But is it a case of it all falling apart simultaneously, or is it a fundamental linchpin in our biology that is being knocked out? And this is where I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about NAD+, and I'm going to be talking about young blood transfusions, which get at a real fundamental basis of aging. So today I'm going to start off with Niagen. Now, Niagen has been floating around the regenerative medicine community and life extension community for quite a while now, but a lot more people know it as NAD+. Now, NAD+, so it's for nicotinamide, sorry, no, you never say this well, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Now, please don't make me say that again. Now, what is this chemical? Well, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide is a coenzyme. Now, the coenzyme is particularly important throughout our biology. If you were to rate it as one of the top 10 most important chemicals in the body, NAD+ would be probably up there in the top 3. It is so fundamental to not only our biology, but mammalian biology in general, and indeed all living life, even down to yeast cells and bacterial cells. It's really fundamental. It is part of every step of respiration, glycolysis, citric acid cycle, oxidative phosphorylation. But it goes beyond that. We've suddenly realized as of late that it's also very important in the signaling pathways. So nutrient sensations and calcium transportation, and so many other things that it's really fundamental. It's like not putting petrol in your car. It's not going to work. So for a very long time now, we've known that nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide is fundamentally, the levels decrease as we age. Now, we recently worked out why NAD+ levels actually decrease as we age. And we worked out that it's because of an enzyme called CD38. Now, CD38 is a membrane protein that basically catalyzes the breakdown of NAD+ into its component parts, because it's part of the signaling pathway, and this is kind of how signaling tends to work. CD35 increases as we get older, which means that it ends up breaking down our NAD+ supply. Now, we know this is proven. Incidentally, I just want to clear something up. A lot of people ask me why it's called NAD+, and the answer is very simple. It's called NAD+ because it naturally exists as a positive ion. So when you buy a supplement for NAD+, if you're going to consume it direct, don't do that, it doesn't work. But if you were to, you would find it as NAD chloride, for example, because it would exist as an ionic compound. But the NAD+, it doesn't mean there's more to it. It just means that it naturally exists as a positive ion. So there's nothing more to it than that. So looking at NAD+, you can see it's quite similar in structure to a very short piece of DNA, but instead of being, down the bottom there, we have adenosine, and then we have a phosphate backbone, and then here we actually have the main part that we're interested in, which is nicotic acid combined with a ribosome base. And that's it. It's not very complicated. So let me go by how we currently deal with NAD+ reduction. Now, what is quite common is niacin. Now, niacin, you can also find it as, it goes by more commonly vitamin B3. And this is it. It's also called as nicotinic acid. There we are, finally. Nicotinic acid is the most common, as you can see, very, very simple compound. And it's been used in the medical fields for years now. Pellagra is a common illness when your NAD+ levels are, for some reason, decreased. And this can cause diarrhea and dementia and dermatitis, the 3Ds, as it were. But pellagra, as it's known, most elderly people have pellagra It's not, they don't openly say it's pellagra, but that's what it is. I mean, it's a lot of trying to get through this, as you mentioned earlier, this kind of, this almost acceptance of, oh, it's just old age, which personally I tend to call it as, Stockholm syndrome with extra steps. But you end up in the situation where doctors won't say, oh yeah, this is, they tend to be okay with anemia. Strangely, anemia seems to be like, yeah, you've got anemia, but a lot of other conditions, they won't typically say, yeah, it's this. You'll just say, oh, you're just getting old, quote unquote, whatever that's meant to mean. So doctors will, however, use niacin medically to treat NAD plus deficiency. And now, interestingly, niacin has also been used quite commonly to deal with high cholesterol. Now, you might ask, why high cholesterol? It's because that niacin is easily, well, not terribly easily, but is a precursor to NAD plus in the body. You give the body niacin, and it can combine it with ribose sugars, and then it combine it with a phosphogroup and an adenine, and you can get NAD plus. So providing this precursor makes it easier for our bodies to produce NAD plus, which in turn makes it helps with a lot of metabolic disorders. And this again is why it tends to deal with cholesterol. Again, this, for people who, a lot of people probably know this already, this smacks an awful lot like the story we've heard of diabetes drugs, like, for example, metformin, when all of a sudden something that's been used to treat a disorder, suddenly people realize that actually this treats some other forms of aging. And now we are seeing that people are looking at not only using niacin to decrease cholesterol levels, but also we're seeing people saying, okay, well, maybe this can be used in general. Niacin, for example, is found a lot in Mediterranean diets, which has been associated with Mediterranean longevity. Now, the side effects of niacin are, well, they're not terrible, but they're not great either. The most common one is hot flashes and flushing. Flushing is just a medical term. Flushing is actually called plethora, but plethora is just red flushes. Your face goes red. And quite often this can be very uncomfortable, not only socially uncomfortable, but it can also cause discomfort, and this is why a lot of people end up taking niacin. Now, where am I going with this? Well, recently a product has gone to the market called Niagen. Now, what is Niagen exactly? So here you can see, sorry, I've skipped down myself here. Here you can see how niacin is part, you can see it's a component of NAD. So this is how you give that component to the body, and it can form NAD plus more easily. So next question is, what is Niagen? Well, Niagen, as you can see here, is just nicotinic acid with a ribose base attached to it, which is structurally very similar to nicotinic acid, but it doesn't have anywhere near the amount of side effects associated with niacin. Now, there are some diarrhea, headaches, etc., which are quite common, but they're not that common. Now, the important part about this is, if you were paying attention previously, that you can see that Niagen, which is called, let me get this straight. Niagen is a large component of NAD plus as it is, and so your body can easily go ahead and take it, add some phosphate groups, add adenosine, which is everywhere in your body. If you're running out of that stuff, you're way past what NAD plus can do for you. And this is fantastic, because not only is it decreasing a lot of the side effects associated with niacin, but it's a hell of a lot easier for your body to produce NAD plus from Niagen than it is from just straight old niacin, which is nicotinic acid. So is it safe? Well, from what we can gather in all of our animal models so far, it's pretty much, now saying it's pretty much safe, anyone in the medical industry will know that you can't exactly say that something is quote unquote safe, because everyone's body's different and people can react badly to certain things. Things that we think are perfectly fine, other people can react badly to. But from what we've seen right now, toxicology results so far have shown that it's no more toxic than niacin, and it doesn't reduce red flashing or hot flashing. It seems to be totally safe from our perspective, which makes sense because Niagen is basically, as it stands, part of the pathway to produce NAD+ to begin with. So if it was toxic, it would be really odd because our bodies naturally produce this as part of our process to produce NAD+. So yeah, safety-wise, as I said, if you're going to try and take, you're going to start taking this, by all means, talk to your doctor, make sure you don't have any allergic reaction to it. But at the end of the day, it is just B3. That's it. And the FDA, for the American viewers, but a lot of the world tends to follow what the FDA says, has said it's completely safe. It's a standard supplement. It's found in food, and it's completely safe. So, side effects for clarity can include nausea, fatigue, headaches, diarrhea, stomach discomfort, and indigestion. It can depend. Some people can have absolutely none of this. Some people can have a lot of this. I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's impossible for you to get them, but these are pretty much standard for supplements. You'll see these warnings on basically any supplement. So take that for what it is worth. Now, is it effective in humans? So I wrote an article about this recently about whether or not mouse studies are important for human studies, and the answer is yes, absolutely. Mice are not that dissimilar to humans. You will have quite often an issue when they have slightly different proteins than us, which is where humanization comes in. But in the grand scheme of things, no, they're not that different. They're not. They are very, very closely related to us. And when we're talking about stuff like this, mechanically, their respiratory system is pretty much exactly the same as us. So their sort of not their lungs, their mitochondria, and their fundamental biochemistry is very similar to us. So to say that, oh yes, increasing artificial NAD levels here in mice won't have any effect here, there's really no reason to believe that. So we have now I could go through hours on what the NAD studies that have gone through, but right now I'm just going to concentrate on two because it's very very closely related to aging, and it's one of the nasty ones, which is Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Now, when we've done these models in mouse models, we've seen that NAD+ has significantly increased the memory and cognitive ability of mice in Alzheimer's mice and Parkinson mice. So these are two different. Sorry, I went ahead of myself. These are two different mouse models. Now, again, you can say, well, that's not human, and granted, it isn't. So the next step here has been with stem cells taken from humans. So these are induced pluripotent stem cells that in this particular study, they also did a fly study as well, but the main focus here is the iPSCs. These were from humans, and mitochondrial function in Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is where your neurons shut down, and it's mostly because of a metabolic dysfunction. And as stem cells treatment from in these iPSCs from humans, not mice, have shown that it is effective at recovering neurons that have Parkinson's disease, which again links to a lot of evidence. We've said that actually Parkinson's disease is a metabolic dysfunctional disease related to, not necessarily all including, but related to mitochondrial function, which has been linked to lack of NAD+, because Parkinson's disease sufferers seem to have a predisposition towards losing certain chemicals such as NAD+. So clinical trials in this are ongoing. There's been some questions about whether or not males with insulin resistance can benefit that much from it, but all our animal studies are saying yes, it's good, and in vitro examples are saying yes, and clinical trials in humans have shown positive results as well. Is it ready for you to go diving in? Well, this is not my place to tell you what you shouldn't do with your own body. Medically, with the testing of safety, it has not been shown to have any negative side effects. It's unlikely to have any negative side effects for you because it's part of your natural metabolism as it is. And the science from humans is a work in progress, like a lot of things are in this field. So really, I would say it's up to you. Naturally, I'm personally considering taking it. I know I'm only 28, but it's never too young to start. And I can definitely say that it's a good idea to at least try it, because ultimately it's just vitamin B3. But the effects of it could be phenomenal. Right. Thank you, Neil. I will take questions now, if you like.
Great. And thank you, Joseph Bennett, for that great talk. I'd like to, at this point, mention that here at the Church of Perpetual Life, we don't tell people what to do. We don't tell people this is the way to do something. Every person is different. Every person's body is different. And as such, each person may need something more than another person. We never, ever endorse any products or services, but we're very happy to expose all of our members to all of the things that are out there so that people can make, you members can make your own decisions, determine what you'd like to try. We know for sure one thing: if we don't do anything, we're going to die. We have to do things to be able to reverse our aging. We have to do things and do all that we can. Now, there are some questions actually in the chat box, so let me bring those up in just a moment. But before I do, I was remiss in not telling you a little bit about Joseph Bennett, who's going to be speaking again this evening. He is a research scientist and biotechnology consultant, specializing in stem cell technology, regenerative medicine, and medical innovation. He has a master's degree in both physics and regenerative medicine, with experience in the field of medical innovation, including medical device development, stem cell technology, and clinical translation. That's a little bit about Joseph Bennett. Now, getting back into the questions for Joe. Let's stump Joe, everybody. Let's see what kind of questions we have. Joe, there's a question here. Are you aware of what foods are highest in NAD+ or Niagen?
I believe if I had to pick one, it would be, now I hate to be that guy, but avocados they're great. They're great. I know a lot of people can't stand them. My girlfriend can't stand them at all. But honestly, stuff like, it's a classic example of, a dietitian will tell you, colorful food are the best way to go. Avocados, off the top of my head, are a great source of vitamin B3. You can also find stuff like, I believe blackberries are also quite high in vitamin B3. It's quite, that's if you're looking for an organic source. Quite a lot of people go down the route of taking in supplements in tablet form. My warning about taking it from tablet form would be that there are quite a few, depend on your particular area that you're getting it. So quite often go buy a reputable company, because quite often you'll find, especially if you're buying over the internet, which is quite often when you're going to buy particularly esoteric supplements, like, well, B3 is not particularly esoteric, but just be careful about whether or not you're buying from a company that has been properly regulated, because there's quite a lot of companies out there that are effectively selling you nothing more than sugar pills. It might have very low levels, but yeah, that was, just be careful. Is my
Yeah. It's again important to mention that we don't ever give references for particular brands or particular kinds. We're a organization that we steer clear of endorsing any particular brand or political party or anything like that. But I appreciate your talk. Let's bring Rabbi Shraga up, who's going to tell us a little bit about the Synagogue of Perpetual Life and all that he's been up to, and bring us up to date. Rabbi.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Neil, for hosting us. I'm really glad to be here. It's an honor for me to be here. Let me explain about myself a little bit. My name is Shraga. I'm a Jewish Orthodox rabbi from Israel. And I'm 28 8 years old. Until I've been 25, my life is been like normal. I've been in my work, in my study, and 3 years ago, I started to have pain, and this pain apparently find out as a cancer. So in the day that the diagnosis came, I stand here in my library. I have more than 2,500 books in my library, and I stand here and I started to cry. In that moment, I didn't realize why I'm crying, because I've been a good person. I think I did my years well. So why do I cry? After the surgery and the treatment, I've been recovering in the bed for I was just in the bed for a few months, not able to talk and to move a lot. And the moment I recovery, I just want to explore life. So I take a plane ticket and start to travel the world. After that, I came back to Israel. And when I came back to Israel, I said to myself, okay, from that point, you need to think by yourself from zero. Delete for your mind all the things you heard, all the things you know, and you study, and start from zero to think a new thinking from new page. And from that moment, I think, wait a second. All the things I know about life and about death, who say is right. And this moment is changed my life. From the moment I realized that death is not a thing, is just you just your life is ended and that's it. And from that moment, I realized why I cried back in this day, because I realized that that's all you have. And from that moment, I started to movement to do, as Neil said before, to take all my skills. I'm not a scientist guy, but I take all my skills and to say, how can I promote beat death or extension the life, and so on. So a year ago, I founded a group in Israel. It's called Beat Death. What do I do is I bring together scientist guy and technology guy together to solve the problem. So I started to send emails. I started to do phone calls, sending messages on Facebook. Started to collecting sightings from all the bunch of field, especially the guys is dealing with aging, biology. So I bring them together and start a movement to think together how we can promote and to take the things forward. So the COVID came, and COVID. And the second I get the vaccine, I take a flight ticket to look what is the people in the world is thinking like me. Apparently, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's a rare. You are a rare people over here. So one of my step was in Florida, and I went to, and I met Neil in the Perpetual Life. He gave me a tour over there, and we talked together. It was very nice, and we thought together maybe we need to spare the idea. So if there's a church, why not to open a synagogue? So we think about to open the synagogue, but before that we need collecting more believers, because people they are in love, or I don't know if in love is the word, but they are live peacefully with the idea of death. And as Neil said before, he said is really important thing. There's something that people come from the mind, from death, and this is the next word concept. So I'm a rabbi, right? So I went to check all over again the concept of next word in Judaism, because if you look of the people, the community of life extension, most of them they're atheistic, right? Atheism, because they understand that that's what we have, like this life. But the really religious guy, they have a solution. They have a solution of the next world solution. So we need more people. What we need more people, because more people is more minds, is more investment will become. It's like the climate change problem. People start to talk about it. Money became come to the field, into the field, and that's what's gonna be with a life extension. So we need as much people we need to bring it back to ideas. So the main black people to came into this field, for my opinion, for in the religious guys, the concept of the next world. So if you go to check the concept of next world in Judaism, it's actually funny, because if you read the Torah, you can see that there is no next world. Yeah, because the greatest blessing that the Torah, writing Torah, there's a writing Torah and a verbal Torah. So the texting Torah, writing Torah, you're not gonna find the concept of the next world. The great blessing that God gives to human being is long life. If you honor your father and mother, God gonna give you long life. But it's not talk about next world. So in Judaism, what's happening few the years, when the Greek, especially in the area the Greek came to Israel, so the concept of the next world become into Judaism. People start to believe in the next world concept. But when people in Judaism believe in the concept of next world, is not word in spiritual for the soul world. People don't know that. When Judaism speak about the next world, it speak about physical body, like us, in this world, in physical world, that we're gonna live forever without death. That is the concept of the next world in Judaism. When all of that is changed 900 years ago, around 900 years ago, when the Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, the Maimonides, if you know, he said a new thing. He said that the idea of the next world is a spiritual, for the soul, like you know today, like heaven and hell. And he was a great rabbi. He was really smart rabbi. But in this concept, it was wrong. And the basic Judaism, all the rabbis say the same thing, that the next world is, in Judaism, is here. Is not just you're gonna live forever, even the death is becoming alive. So obviously you will continue to live forever, and the death is not gonna be anymore in our world. So my main goal today is convince people in the idea that the next world is here, that we're gonna live forever in the body, and our soul. So this block immediately fall, and they can join us to the group of life extension and helping us to bring us to be animated people. So that's what I'm doing, and to bring as much people as I can in my place. And I think if everybody needs, say before, if everybody in his place, bring together, spread the idea in his area, in a short time will be much larger group, and there's going to be more people. As I said, more people is more money, is more investments, is more. In 20 years we will have an army of scientists that dealing with the aging problem. And amen. And
Great, Rabbi. Thank you so much for that. And we are looking forward to seeing you with your great flock as you grow and prosper over there in Israel. I see great things for the Synagogue of Perpetual Life as we progress. So our next speaker comes back to our good friend, Joseph Bennett. Get ready, Joseph. Let me tell him a little bit more about you. Joseph Bennett has extensive laboratory experience, including stem cell cultivation, genetic analysis, sample extraction, viral analysis, and experimental automation. Extensive experience as a scientific journalist, as well as experience in medical writing and biotechnology consultant. Let's bring back Joseph Bennett to speak now on another topic. Joseph.
Thank you, Neil. Right. Okay. So carrying on from what I previously was talking about with nicotinamide, this is another very simple. Let me just get this. Let me just get my presentation ready. Okay. So, as I was saying previously, a lot of scientists are coming to the conclusion now that there is actually some really fundamental linchpins, as they were. They've been dubbed the linchpins of aging, as it were. When we were talking about nicotinamide, that was talking about NAD plus decreasing, and that is connected massively to our metabolic system. Now, there is potentially another avenue that we've suddenly realized, and this is the avenue that we've suddenly realized that our bodies, as they stand right now, don't quite regulate everything in our system. Now, we have our kidneys and our liver, which perform dialysis, and they get rid of urea and other unwanted metabolic byproducts. But there's certain things that our bodies do not get rid of. And one of the main things they don't get rid of is inflammatory proteins like cytokines. And this causes our body a great deal of issues, in that we end up losing control over our bodies because our cell signaling pathways break down. Quite a few of you probably heard of the naked mole rat, which lives for decades, which is something that a rodent just doesn't do. And for years and years and years, we've been going through and saying, well, okay, why the hell can this rodent live for 25 years plus when its closest relatives can barely live 3 years? So why is this? And what we've recently worked out is that the naked mole rat, as it were, doesn't produce a long-term immune response. So it doesn't produce inflammatory proteins in the same way that we do. Now, this means that it can only have a short-term response. So something like becoming immune to something for the naked mole rat is impossible, because it doesn't keep long records of pathogens. However, what it does mean is it doesn't produce the same kind of inflammatory response that other mammals do, like us, for example. And as we age, the inflammatory responses and signaling pathways, they break down. And what they do is they get locked into these positive feedback loops, which result in the signaling pathways going completely out of control. And eventually what happens is these these signaling cytokines, they end up shutting down cells and causing senescence. And if your cells are not working, this is where you have a knock-on effect. And in fact, there's this theory that senescence is actually a positive feedback loop in itself. So some cells become senescent just because they get damaged, and they end up signaling to other cells to in themselves become senescent. So this is another subject that has been going around the longevity community now for quite a while. And unfortunately, it then got the attention of the mainstream media, which is typically not a great thing. It is, providing it's honest, but clickbait articles have also been created about the subject, and I'm going to have to debunk those as well connected to this. So, what is plasma dilution therapy? Now, you might have heard this as young blood therapy, and it came about from an experiment that was conducted in California in 2005, which is a bit of a macabre experiment, as many have claimed. But what it was a group of scientists decided to see whether or not combining the circulatory system of a young mouse and an old mouse to see what happened. Now, this is called parabiosis, which is combining the circulatory systems of two animals. And the results from this experiment were extraordinary. So previously, what we were thinking about with aging, we're thinking, okay, it's cellular decay, it is DNA damage, it's methylation damage, it's organelle damage, and it shouldn't really necessarily be affected by the blood, because the blood is just supporting protein, just supplying nutrients and whatnot. But that's not the case. And upon further examination, it turns out that in fact, what's inside the blood has a significant effect on the grand scheme of things in an organism's lifestyle and general health. So what was found in this experiment was the younger mouse showed significant signs of deterioration, which you might explain by possibly inflammatory responses or what have you, and basically combining your circulatory system with another organism, you can tend to expect things to go badly for the organism. However, the older mouse, and lots of scientists were expecting the older mouse to just die from this procedure, but far from dying or deteriorating, the older mouse showed significant regeneration. And we're not talking like, oh, the mouse was about a couple of percent better at performing a maze test, or what was 0.5% stronger. We're talking 20, 30, even 40% improvement in muscle capacity, memory capacity. We're talking about bone regeneration. We're talking about liver functionality, liver enzymes through the roof in comparison to what they were previously showing. And yeah, it seemed like this is reverse agent because it was. Even methylation tests have shown that this decreases methylation age of an organism, and this is by all the metrics we use, reversing aging in mice. And yes, again, harping back from what I said about nicotinamide, just because it's in mice does not mean that it has no relation to humans, because humans and mice are not that different. Yes, there are differences in protein structure, and yes, there are certain pathways that are different, but the grand scheme of things, it's not that different. So whenever you see people dismissing results because it was in a mouse model, typically what they have done is they've taken a drugs model, and yes, individual drugs can be dramatically different in different species, but this is not an individual drug. This is not an individual enzyme. This is the grand scheme of things of the metabolic system of an entire organism. And mice and humans are not that different. So don't get discouraged whenever people say, oh, it's just in mice, because they don't know what they're talking about. Or if they do know what they're talking about, they're being very pessimistic. So, right. So going on from this experiment, the natural next progression was to say, okay, well, that means young blood has regenerative properties. However, that was the point where journalists decided to make their clickbait articles, and it went a little bit crazy in that you saw articles based on saying like, oh, we're going to be exploiting the youth for young blood, and it's going to create a class system and all this stuff, which, as I'll get into later, not the case. So what we then went into is, okay, well, what is it? What is it about young blood? Or what is it about old blood, more precisely? What was then done was something called plasma dilution. So the theory goes that it's not something that's inside young blood that's particularly helpful. It's the fact that old blood ends up producing, containing these cytokines and these inflammatory proteins that are detrimental to the healthy organism. So all plasma dilution is that you take your plasma, and the plasma is effectively the water of the blood. It's saline with albumin in it. It's also got all of the signaling proteins and whatnot. It's basically not the cells in the grand scheme of things. And all you do is the current typical tests on plasma dilution are 50% of your blood has its plasma removed, and you just replace it. And what they're currently doing in testing is they're replacing it with what is nothing more than saline with albumin, which is just a protein, which is the main composite of your blood. And that's it. That's it. And what they found when they tested this on mice. And so what this particular example is, they tested on the 3 germ layers. Now, 3 germ layers, for anyone who's not in the know, is that when a embryo forms, it forms into 3 distinct layers: the ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm, which then proliferate into different parts of your body. So the saying of germ layers is basically saying where the original cell came from. So to say the 3 germ layers is to say that they've tested parts from all over the body. They tested their muscle responsive mice, they tested liver functionality and neural capacity. And they showed, again, very similar results, if not identical results, to the young blood transfusions. So we saw a significant reduction in fibrosis of the liver, which is when it basically is gunked up with proteins that you don't want. We saw a significant increase in muscle regeneration in mice, and we showed significant increase in neurogenesis, which is combating neurological degradation. So this study then went on and said, okay, again, in mice, yes, true, but what if we do it in humans? Now, the FDA is still to this day not okay with the dilution therapy yet. It's not been cleared by them. But there is an alternative, which is just plasma transfusion therapy, which is basically just replacing your plasma with someone else's plasma. And when we did this, obviously the plasma donor is younger than the recipient, showed that the myogenic cells, which are muscle cells, again, on the left-hand side, you can see before the transfusion, and after you can see the post-transfusion. They call it plasma therapeutic plasma exchange, but it's a transfusion. What they're doing here is they're called Brad staining, and when we do Brad staining, this shows basically mitosis. It shows the rate at which cells are dividing. And you can see here that before, I believe this patient was 75, I think. Before the transfusion, you saw next to no mitosis in these muscle cells. And after, we saw significant increase in mitosis. So again, even when we've gone ahead and taken something from mice into humans, it seems to work. It seems to be absolutely 100. And again, this goes back to the idea that it might not, the whole aging process might not be that complicated at all. It might just be some really fundamental things that we have to fix. And these results here are huge. They are, I can't understate how significant these kind of results are, because it's so simple. It's albumin and saline solution. It's dirt cheap. And a transfusion, it's very easy. We're not talking about, regrowing organs. We're not talking about some horrific surgery. We're not talking about really anything more significant than what your local GP can do. And the news is fantastic. Now, to get on to the question, a lot of people have started saying, well, actually, we don't need to transfuse plasma. All we need to do is dilute it. Now, from our preliminary results, this seems to be the case. However, we interestingly, on a side note here, we found that proteins such as transformative growth factor beta, TGF beta for short, has positive feedback loops. And this one is I picked this one out in particular because it's an absolute killer for stem cells. This stuff will shut down stem cells, and it will shut down your stem cells. And a lot of stem cells in your body will basically stop functioning if you put enough of this in the solution that you're growing them in. Now, that's important because TGF-beta has a positive feedback loop within the body. So there's a theory kicking around right now that TGF-beta is one of the proteins that will, as the levels start rising in the body from metabolic processes, that it will start kickstarting its own upregulation. And this is one of the theories that's kicking around to say that this is one of the reasons why we start exponentially aging after a certain point, because TGF-beta starts exponentially increasing after a certain point. And this is where blood dilution comes in. Blood dilution will get rid of TGF-beta and reduce it back to its normal levels. And in our in vitro studies, TGF-beta has been shown to really, really affect stem cell growth and regeneration. And if we can get rid of that, again, it's one of those linchpins. It's not that the stem cells, a lot of people believe that stem cells, the stem cells in our bodies stop working, like they become corrupted in some ways. It's started to believe now that they might just be turned off. And this is what TGF-beta does to stem cells. It turns cells off. And in fact, we use TGF-beta to shut down cells in laboratories that we don't want to proliferate past a certain point. This is basically an off switch for your stem cells. Without stem cells, your body's going to fall apart. So that is where we get the plasma dilution idea from. And all the results up to this point say, yes, it works. Now, on a side note, there are certain proteins that decrease with age that we might want to reintroduce. This is, for example, epigenetic growth factor, transcription factor, to name a few, but there are others. I picked out some examples here. We don't know yet whether or not we need to artificially increase those, or whether or not getting rid of stuff like TGF-beta will allow cells to start producing these proteins themselves and kickstart, restarting the metabolic systems or restarting the biological systems. We don't know this yet. However, this is where the big ethical hullabaloo has occurred about this, and I'm just going to go straight at this and just tell people the complete, honest truth is that what the media have been trying to, not necessarily the media, you know how social media gets when you put out information that's not entirely correct and not entirely hasn't got the full truth about it. Ethical concerns of young blood plasma therapy. Are there any ethical concerns? And my answer is no, with an asterisk next to it. Where does the young blood plasma come from? The answer is that when this passes clinical trials, if it passes clinical trials and we don't find something horrific going on, and it gets into clinical applications, the young blood plasma will not see a human before it is used. It just won't, for several reasons. We can talk about the fact that it will be very expensive to get it from humans. It will be potentially dangerous to get it from humans. There are a lot of pathogens that can get through the process. The HIV virus is one of them. That we will not want to be transferred to a plasma therapy. It will be, and again, you then run into these ethical issues about, is it ethical to take blood from young people, et cetera, et cetera. The answer to all of those questions is it will never see a human. It just won't, because that's not how we do things in the modern world. I'll give an example from where I was previously talking about in one of my journal articles, is insulin. Insulin used to be harvested. It was occasionally harvested from humans, but it was mostly harvested from animals, in particular swine. And it was harvested from the pancreas. Incredibly expensive process. Very few people could actually afford the drug, and it was incredibly hard to get hold of. Now, we don't do that with insulin these days. We use genetically engineered yeast to produce the protein, and it's a much cheaper, much safer, and today pretty much everyone in the Western world can afford and indeed in other parts of the world, the price has gone through the floor, which is a fantastic thing, and we should be infinitely grateful for scientific progress for allowing this to be the case. This is exactly how we would go ahead and approach plasma therapy if we need it. So it's exactly how we produce albumin for these plasma dilution therapies, and it will be exactly how we, if we needed to, would produce transformative growth factor, epigenetic growth factor, and all these other proteins. So there is no reason to believe that this would ever come from a human. So this is where the whole idea of, oh, you'll be harvesting from young people and that's unethical and yada, yada, yada. If you hear anything about this, it is complete clickbait. There is no ethical reason to believe that would be the case. However, this is where my asterisk comes in. There is concerns that this will open up another market in the red market, which is with illegal practices, illegal organ harvesting, illegal blood harvesting, etc. The answer to that ethical question is that all medical procedures have a red market attached to them. We even these days, we even have a red market attached to COVID-19 vaccinations. We've had red market attached to organ donations for as long as it's been a thing. We can't allow possibilities of red market exploitation to hold back medical research because we haven't done yet. And ultimately, as Neil was saying earlier, extension of life is ultimately going to bring prosperity to hopefully everyone. And without this increase in our longevity, increase in our health span, a lot of poverty in the world comes from illness. If you get to a certain age, you can't work, people have to try and take care of you. And my personal belief from this perspective is that giving people longevity and giving people health is the most ethical way to combat poverty in the world, and in turn combat stuff like the red market, because without poverty, things like this do not thrive. And that is my personal opinion on the matter. But as it stands for clinical, above board therapeutics, there's no reason to believe that any such untoward activity will happen. But there is always the caveat that you need to possibly address the unscrupulous parts of humanity. And that's all I have to say on that particular subject.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Now, can I ask, when you say red markets, I think that would be the same in the US as a black market?
Yes, it is. That exactly is what it is. It is a black market.
Yes.
But in medical terms, you say the red market is a black market related to medical.
Yes, I wanted to clarify that for some of our listeners. They're saying, what's the red market? Okay, so there you go. Okay, questions for our good friend, Joe Bennett. Who has questions? Questions. And Joe, I hope that you'll be able to stick around in the next Zoom party. I know that there are some people that would like to talk with you informally and not on the record, if you will.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
Let's do that. Let's go ahead and let me tell you that a couple of things. Now, the Rad Fest is coming in October, the first week of October. Revolution Against Aging and Death. It's the least expensive it ever will be because it's all virtual. So it's like $100 or something to be able to go to the Rad Fest this year. You don't have to pay for airplane tickets. You don't have to pay for expensive meals. You don't have to pay for hotel rooms or cabs or rent-a-cars. So there's no reason why everyone shouldn't be there. I'll be there. So please do, if you can, get to the Rad Fest and enjoy and invest in your future. Also, for those of you who are watching the YouTube stream, and for the rest of you, note that at the website, perpetual.life, at our website, churchofperpetuallife.org, which is the same as perpetual.life, we have a box at the top. It's a blue box, and that's where you click to register for the Zoom, so you can be in the Zoom party, involved in the YouTube stream, and at the after party that Tanya hosts oh so well. Our next service next month, it will be movie night, and it's on Thursday, August 26th. Our services, for those of you who are here for the very first time, typically we are always once a month. Typically, it's the fourth Thursday. Sometimes it's a different day of the month, but we'll be keeping in touch with you by sending you regular emails. And if you ever have a question, you can email me through that same website, perpetual.life. So our movie night on Thursday, August 26th, the Zoom starts at 6. We're not exactly sure how we're going to do it, but we will be having a movie night. Then we're going to discuss. The movie next month will be The Invention of Lying. It's a PG movie with Ricky Gervais. And afterwards, as I said, we'll discuss the movie. And stand by next month for a really big announcement we're going to make. We won't be talking about this in the Zoom after party. Everyone's going to hear it all at the same time next month at our service on August 26th. Big news coming from Perpetual Life. And you can watch the movie, The Invention of Lying. If you want to see it beforehand, it's really great. And you can watch it in all the major channels like Google TV, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Vudu, rent it from Redbox, something like that. All right, so thank you for coming tonight. It's been great having you, and we look forward to now getting into the Zoom party. Douglas.